So hello everyone, welcome to another All Blaze No Glory Craft Beer Wednesday. That was rubbish. I should definitely use a tin from now on, Kenny.
How are you doing, Kenny? It's probably better than it was last week, because last week's was terrible.
Yeah, well, I didn't spill it everywhere this time, so that's good. This is
a bonus.
Shout out to Lindsay's brother, my future brother-in-law. Get me the Sky Gold. Also, based on last week, I decided that 330 mils was not enough for the length of podcast we had last week.
I'm not sure whether that's down to the can or whether that's down to the podcast, because an hour and 55 minutes, we did kind of drag it on a bit.
A wee bit. Anyway, just a quick summary. How did you enjoy the matches you managed to see over the weekend?
To be honest, I saw all of every game apart from the Cardinals game. I only kind of got highlights of the Cardinals game. I got 90% of the rest of the games, which I was pretty damn happy with, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see all the games either, and in fact, I've not really even seen the highlights of the Bills game yet, which I mean, definitely go watch.
Absolutely, the first perfect game in NFL history.
So I think what we decided we're going to do is we'll go through the preview, the sort of next matches, talk about who our picks might be in each one. Just before we get to that, Kenny, you'll see I'm rocking my Team Stripes thing, and everything I do is very deliberate. This is a Ice Hockey UK Team Stripes one. Everything I do is quite deliberate. How did you rate the refereeing over the weekend, particularly in that Bengals game?
I mean, it wasn't great. The Bengals game was, I think you could take it as down two roads. You could take it down, it was an absolute farce, or you could take it down that, yeah, they made a mistake. But my issue with they made a mistake, which is kind of where I'm going with it. People make mistakes. Refs make mistakes. They're human as well. I kind of feel New York should have stepped in at that point where they've got the power to do that, to say, hang about, that is not with the letter of the law, and this needs to be taken care of before the PAT was kicked.
Yeah.
If they're saying it's a touchdown, fine. Touchdown is called, but then it's overturned or replayed that down because there was players that heard the whistle and stopped. Mm-hmm. And B, with the letter of the law, because the whistle was blown, that's gone. That cannot be termed a touchdown.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was a particularly, I suppose, the biggest blunder. I mean, you can always argue they miss a call, and you can always argue that it's a call that was a bit soft or whatever. Particularly, there was one on Tom Brady, roughing the passer call, which to me, I think was soft. And I'm not saying it's soft because it was Tom Brady and there's some kind of overprotection of him. I genuinely think it was quite soft.
I'd agree with that.
The Bengals, that call in the Bengals game, actually, it was one of these ones where whatever happened was going to be an inherent unfairness to either team, because whilst players kind of held off a little bit, and you could see at the end of the play, the receiver caught the ball, and the defender...
He didn't think it was a touchdown either.
No, he didn't. And the defender who was there didn't even flash a hand up to try and knock it down or anything.
No, he was halfway through making his play and stopped. His hands went down. He became non-committal because he'd heard the whistle. Now, It was a late whistle, but it was a whistle.
Yeah.
And with a breakdown of the rules, now I've not looked into them in great detail, but what I've picked from analysts and read-ups is that definitively, it cannot be called a touchdown. Yeah. The touchdown cannot be given if the whistle has blown before he has caught the ball. And there was clear evidence of that. So, I mean, would it have been harsh on the Bengals to say, guys, no, that's not going up? I don't think so, because that is the letter of the law.
No, I agree with you, and I think the right call would have been to replay the down. What I am saying is that in a way it was an inherent unfairness because it should never have been blown. And the Bengals, I still think that catch is made, and I still think they score a touchdown. However, I think the right call was to replay the down because the defender clearly stops. Now, I don't think the defender was ever getting there from where he was.
Nope, neither do I.
The receiver, but he clearly stops, and you know, we're all taught. We've played ice hockey long enough. We've played other sports.
Play the whistle.
Play the whistle. You're not taught play after the whistle. If you play after the whistle, that's when you get into trouble for doing stuff after the whistle. So,
and they're quick enough to hand out penalties for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think
that
it was very, very harsh, and it marred what was, I think, a big day for the Bengals, because I think, you know, if they replayed that, they probably don't get themselves into such a guddle and score a touchdown that looks a bit more, I don't know, orthodox, or they kick a field goal, and I think the game, they finished 5 ahead, they might have finished 1 ahead, you know, based on if you look at it that way. So it changes a lot of things. As I say, I just think it was inherently unfair, whatever way it happened. However, the right call should have been to replay the down, because you never know, that player might have made a play on the ball. We don't know. There was that, and of course there was the end of the Dallas game, but that was Dallas's fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I thought it was poor management, poor execution, and poor coaching, I suppose, at the end of the day. But then they almost got a scapegoat because of the referee controversy with that one, because it was just silly.
Yeah. I mean, they know that you see every player that does it, they chuck the ball straight to the referee or the line judge or whatever to spot it immediately once they make their play. And Dak didn't do that. He gave it to his centre to spot the ball. And then they all lined up, and the referee was coming because they have to spot it themselves, and that is the rule. Talking about rules being enforced. And he comes to spot it, and he's got 3 big linemen's backsides in his way as he's trying to get to the ball. So that was, and why you run the ball in that situation, I have no idea. When you know the clock's going to run, you know you've got no timeouts. Chuck it to the end zone, and if you don't think Dak can do it, then is he really the right quarterback for you? If you don't think he can reach the end zone from there,
so I mean, the field position that they had, if you can't make the end zone from there, I'm not necessarily saying that he's not the right guy, but it's definitely not the right play to run the ball. Because if you're running the ball, you need to make sure that you're getting the ball to the referee. Then it's got to be spotted properly. Then you've got to line up properly, even to make a spike.
Yeah.
To kill the clock. So you run an out route or a post route and have a goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And if you're not going to do that, you get rid of the ball and go for it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you either have to get out of bounds or stop the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basic game management, and I don't like blaming something on one person. I always think there's a multitude of things in play. And if I'm honest, Dak has grown on me a lot this year. As a person, as a quarterback, I think Hard Knocks really helped his persona, or his, I suppose, is the way he's perceived by others. A lot of the blame's got to go on Dak for that, because he mismanaged the situation.
Well, it's not just him, of course. There's Kellen Moore, who has been lauded as the next big offensive genius. He's calling the plays there. Or it's Mike. He is calling the plays.
Yeah, well, fair enough. He's called the run.
Mm-hmm.
Dak's still giving the ball to the wrong person.
Well, that's true as well. So
that's my point with it. A lot of it comes down on Dak. He has mismanaged the situation. Fair enough. If the play call's wrong, the play call's wrong. it's also within Dak's power to audible out of that and still call a passing play if he feels that it's in the best interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Likewise with that, if Kellen Moore and Dak don't have that relationship where Dak's got the authority to do that, who does that come down on? Does that come down on your franchise quarterback? Or does that come down on your offensive coordinator? Or does that come down on McCarthy or Jones?
I mean, I don't think Jerry Jones can really be faulted for this situation.
For that individual situation, no, but for the individual situation arising, potentially, if he's not, because he does have an influential voice within the team. You saw that on Hard Knocks, and the amount that he puts himself in the media with regards to the team. Yeah. He has a say with the day-to-day organisation of that team. So if Dak and Kellen Moore don't have that relationship, who does that then come down on? If you look at any business, if you've got a writer and an editor for a newspaper or an article, if the writer and the editor don't have that relationship, it comes down to the press secretary, or it comes down to the next man up, above them and on the tree, to make sure that either they do or they know who is in line, who's making the ultimate judgment call. If that's Dak, fine. If that's Kellen Moore, then yes, he takes the blame for the play call. But at the end of the day, Dak still mismanaged the situation by giving the ball to the wrong person.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to dwell on the Cowboys too much because they get enough media coverage as it is. And
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I enjoyed that little rant. You had your rant about the Rams last week. I'm on my rant about the bloody Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The cynic in me, just to finalise this point, wonders if Kellen Moore was just making sure that he got his pick of all the jobs before they went. As a new head coach in wait.
I mean, there's a conspiracy theory for you, but I feel that's for another pod at some point.
Yeah, and possibly, I mean, if I'm going to go down that and actually believe what I just said, I'd be outside the Capitol waving Donald Trump flags on the 6th of January last year. Anyway.
Outside or inside?
Well, I mean, I'm too fat through small broken doors, so I'm probably outside. So anyway, first up this weekend, I think this is I would like to call this game. We had West of Us last week, which I think has been rightly said that that's probably West of Us over. West of Us was the last time the Bengals lost, and lost in pretty amazing fashion with Burfitt being a twat. But
I think they go first this week again.
They go first this week again. I think it's Greg Rosenthal, of course, that tweeted out that the Bengals and the Titans could be the division winners the next 10 years. They're still going to be on the Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
But I will say this I'd like to call this game the feel-good bowl, okay? Because the Bengals are turned into a bit of a story. Like unless you're like a Browns fan, a Steelers fan, or a Baltimore fan who hates the Bengals, I think you can kind of be happy enough with how they're getting on because they're a franchise that's not done well for a while and all sorts. And
yeah, I mean, I think they are. Bengals definitely are a feel good. Put your teeth back in. Feel good story. They genuinely are. I mean, 10-7 throughout the regular season, a gutsy win in the playoffs. Even if they do go one and done this week, they have shown enough progress to think that they're still an up arrow at the end of the year.
Yeah, and they're entertaining. I think that's the. I think.
Oh, aye.
We watched
agree more. I mean, I think they were entertaining last year until Burrows took that horrific injury. But even though there was still little glimmers in there to show, you know what, if everybody comes together, they've got a chance to be I'm not going to say a Super Bowl contender, but a division contender and potentially even a conference contender for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side, and the reason I'm calling this a feel-good bowl is because on the other side of that, I think we've got a pretty likeable Tennessee Titans team that have a lot of pieces they can be quite entertaining to watch. And I think Vrabel is kind of a likable coach because he's just kind of old.
I've got a lot of time for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't think I like the fact that I have a lot of time for him because he doesn't seem like the type of guy that I would want to root for.
Yeah, I think that's.
You
I
see
think
him on the
that's
sidelines, and it's like I'm not when I'm talking about chewing, I'm not talking like Pete Carroll going through 14 sticks of gum. He seems to be always chewing somebody's ear off or talking to himself or in his own head, or like he's just popped 14 paracetamols and he's not entirely sure what bloody planet he's on. But then you see what he's like with his team and you're like, you know what? He's all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would be happy with either of these teams winning this game. I think.
As somebody from Scotland, you really need to make sure you're not saying, I'm not sure which Tims I want to go through.
Oh, sorry. I'd be happy with either teams winning this game, either of the teams. But we've got Bengals on one side have got this exciting sort of sophomore rookie connection with Chase and Burrows. And then on the other side, we've got Tennessee, who've got this mad running game that worked despite the best running back in the league being out on the shelf for long enough. And a defense.
He's not on the injury report,
mm-hmm.
but he has himself said, I'll see what I'm like on Saturday.
Yeah.
It'll be a judgment call on the day.
Yeah, but they're still running the ball incredibly well without him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then flip that over. You've got the Bengals have got an okay defense, and then the Tennessee have got the good interior line. I think this could be a pretty good game. I don't see this being sort of equivalent to what we saw with Eagles Tampa, for example. I think this is going to be quite close. I think the Tennessee Titans are clearly the favourite, but it wouldn't shock me if Cincinnati just found a way in this game. And I just think it's going to be entertaining, but it's going to be a game you can watch and just not care who wins.
I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if this game goes to OT. It's the one game of the weekend that I'm like, that could go a bit extra.
That I think that's exactly right. And I don't think it's not in a place where the weather becomes a factor for one team either that isn't used to playing there. I think it's, they're both kind of, I think they're both considered Midwestern, although one's more south than the other. So the temperate and all that sort of stuff is going to be pretty similar. And I just, while we're on that, I just saw the Rookie of the Year by Pepsi. I presume this is not like the official one. It's like some one that Pepsi gives out. Instead of Pepsi Max, it's now called Pepsi Zero Sugar. Rubbish, isn't it? But Jamar Chase is in the lead, followed reasonably closely by Micah Parsons in that vote. I have to say, and probably deservedly so because Micah Parsons has been awesome this year for the Cowboys. But it's got to be between those two, and they're both on different sides of the ball. I don't know why Najee Harris has got 10% of the votes, quite frankly. I think
that's maybe a little bit of recency bias. He did finish strongly towards the end of the year, but I also think that these recency bias comes in to a lot of these votes, which is kind of why I don't like them unless they are stipulated as a season vote.
Mm-hmm.
There was something on the ATN podcast the last week, I think it was, comparing Rodgers and Brady, who should be higher up in the MVP ratings, voting, standings, whatever you want to call it. Because Rodgers probably, I think he's got slightly better statistics, but had a very mediocre start to the year and then came off very strong. Whereas Brady's only just behind him, but is the consistency of being at that level the entire year. Yeah. Where should your vote go? They're very close in their statistics now at the end of the year. But do you go with the recency bias because he finished strong, or do you go with the overall performance of the season and say, you know what, he is the most valuable player because he's been there at that level the entire year.
Yeah.
On that, and it's slightly off topic, but it does irk me intently. What are you voting for?
Well, if it's
Is
a
it-
fan vote,
well, yeah, even no, I mean, fair enough. The Pepsi one's a fan vote, and I get that. And even if it's the writers, are you? And this is a little bit from a guy called Colin Coward, who has the Herd podcast and TV show. It used to be on Sports Nation.
it's a very
He irritates a lot of people.
Yeah,
he is an opinions guy as opposed to a facts guy.
Yeah.
He'll base his opinion on facts, but then he'll be like, look, if you don't like my opinion, that's cool. I'm here to make money. I'm here to get ratings. I'm here to raise conversation. This is what I feel. But I feel he makes a good point when he says, is this a most statistical best player, or is it the most valuable player?
Yeah.
Because they're not the same thing.
And it varies from team to team, because if you think about
Couldn't agree more.
Tennessee on a normal year without Henry getting injured, their best and most important player, now normally the QB position's the most important, but their best player is Derrick Henry, and he is the MVP normal years for the Titans, and that's not normal. Normally your MVP is your quarterback.
Yeah.
In terms of who's the most valuable to your overall win. For Pittsburgh this year, getting in the playoffs, the most valuable player was TJ Watt. And arguably he could be the MVP of the league, and it would be weird and unusual because people wouldn't expect that. But I don't think that would be wrong, because as they say, when he has played, they've won, when he's played more than 60% of the snaps in games, they've been undefeated. Apart from, I think, maybe in obviously the last game. And then, when he's played less than 60% of the snaps, they've been terrible. So MVP is clearly, it's everything as well, because with Rodgers' statistics are great, his play is great, he helps his team win. But he also is kind of, before the season, he's kind of disruptive and a bit of a pest and stuff to his own team. Now, we talked last week about him celebrating and whether we liked that or not, but his own team, and are his team staying together in spite of Rodgers' behaviour because he's a good player, or are they galvanised by Rodgers' behaviour? And I think it's probably the former. So I think it all comes together. Brady is clearly a team guy. He demands perfection from his team. And if you're going to go that it's got to be a QB and it's going to be him or Rodgers, personally, and I never thought I'd hear myself say this, I'd pick Brady this year.
If you're going on that, yes. However, I genuinely believe that he's not been the most valuable player on his team.
Well, again, it is an opinions thing. I don't think we can quantify it. I think everyone will have their own way of doing it. And I mean, it's like when we get these all-star votes for whatever sport you follow, and I've done it. And if I'm not sure in a position, I tend to pick the player that I think is going to be the most exciting, if I know a bit about the players. And sometimes if there's a tie, you're going to pick your own team's player. And writers and everybody, they all grew up as fans, so that could be the tie break for them. So I don't know. We went on, as you say, we went off piste here, as usual. But I do think I think you're absolutely right. I think how do you quantify what is the most valuable player? Take the Rams, for example. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver. He's basically been when Stafford's been struggling, his outlet and the reason that this Rams have competed. And many other, as I say, Steelers, Myles Garrett for the Browns this year, for example. That's probably, the extent of Cowboys. Micah Parsons is arguably their MVP this year, or Pollard or Diggs. It's not necessarily been that.
Or Zeke, because who's had an okay year. His numbers have been okay, but why wouldn't you give it to somebody that's been there the whole year, and when he's not played, they've not had a running game. When Pollard has played, Zeke's numbers have gone up. because they've been able to use a secondary back. What is the definition of value? Like you say, we have gone off topic, but it is something that I feel should be discussed more when you're talking about MVP votes. Is it the most valuable, or is it the best player in the league that year?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from, I suppose, from a sport that we both know perhaps a bit better, in our days playing for the Eagles and stuff like that, you could look at the team and say, well, I'm trying to think of an era where we were both playing, but you could look at an era and perhaps say that at some point, I don't know, Patrick Rayner was scoring the most goals, but arguably still the most important player in that team was Eddie Baker, because he was the guy who was turning up every week. He's the guy who was taking people to games. He was, I know that sounds stupid, but that's the kind of thing you could argue. I mean, it is all relative, and we recently retired Eddie's number, and largely it's not just his on-ice ability, which was great, and we all know that he could score goals from anywhere in the blue paint.
Yeah, but it was his contribution to the club.
It was his contribution now, and I guess, how do you quantify that? And clearly, each team will have a different leader, and we're not going to. The problem for the writers and everything picking these is they don't actually know who the team MVP is and who the real glue guy is and who the guy is that's going to win the game. So, as we went off piste, if it's out of Rodgers and Brady, I pick Brady just because I think he's the more consistent performer and the guy who has helped the team the most this year. Perhaps more so than Rodgers. Anyway, so we're getting to the game. Two teams that aren't even playing. In terms of...
we're half an hour in and we've not talked about a game yet.
Yeah. So we're talking Tennessee Bengals. How do you see it going?
Well, without wanting to go back to last week, I think, 2 seconds while I remember what it was. I was 4-2 last week with my picks on the winners, if nothing else. So I'm relatively confident going into this week with my game winners. The margin might be a little bit different. I've got Tennessee by 8. It is 8. Yes, it is 8. Which gives me the field goal win. Obviously, because it's five plus or minus. Mm-hmm. So I think I've gone relatively safe on that because I do think Tennessee will win. I just think they've got more experience of playoff football. I almost said hockey there. Playoff football. They have had the heartbreak. They've had the tough comeback wins in recent years. Cincinnati are riding high at the moment, but also they're young. They're young and hungry, but they're young and some might say inexperienced in these spots, especially with their go-to guys. You've got Chase, you've got Burrows. They've got a great connection, and they've played. I believe they played in college together as well.
They played at LSU, yeah.
Yeah.
Burrows last season.
So they and obviously have played playoff football with LSU, but they've not. It's not at this level. Against this level and against this coaching staff as well, because, like you say, Tennessee have got a very good coaching staff there. They seem to be quite tight knit and singing off the same hymn sheet, I guess. So with that, Tannehill's got experience in the playoffs now as well. It might be a little bit of recency with that, but that's good in respect to playoff experience. He's had it in recent years, and there's been heartache with that because they've not had the results deep in the playoffs, but they've got right through the first round. They've got through the second round. Last year, obviously, they won. I think were they number one seeds going in last year as well?
No, that was the Chiefs last year.
So it was, sorry, yes. So they got through 2 rounds last year, or they got into the second game at least. So they've had, or did they? Did they go out first?
I think they got to the...
Is that 2 years ago I'm thinking of?
I can't quite remember. I know obviously the Bills made it to the championship game. The Browns played the Browns ended up playing the Chiefs. Not Pittsburgh. I'm sure Tennessee played somebody, and I'm sure they went out in the first round last year. I think in the wildcard round. I think it might have been the year before they got to the second round.
Might have been, yeah. But even with that, they have that Henry, Tannehill plus weapons. It's not just those two. And they've shown when Henry's not been on the field that they still have a running game. And Tannehill hasn't had to do as much as some might have expected him to do when Henry went out. And yeah, because of that, it gives the 8 points gives me a 13-point win, but also gives me a 3-point win. So kind of hedging my bets on that one with an 8-point Tennessee win. How do you think it's going?
I mean, I think Tennessee will win. And I think the reason they'll win is because I think that their defense is more likely to get one or two stops when they need it. And I think that the Tennessee offense is built to control the ball more against a Bengals team, which is far more explosive. So I think the Bengals will stay in it because they've got an explosive offense. But I think Tennessee will have more drives that end in a score, if that makes sense. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, but I can't see it be more than maybe 5 points, personally, either way. And I think to go back to what you said before we went off on a tangent about MVPs, I could see this one going to overtime quite easily. And then if it does, it could be game on for Bengals then, because Evan McPherson is... We talked about him.
We did, and to be honest,
he's a good kicker.
It's the first week that he actually hit my radar. The fact that you did mention him, and I was able to watch a fair bit of that game live, so got the atmosphere. It wasn't just the game in 40 catch up. Fair play to him. Every ball that I saw him strike, plumb down the middle.
Yeah. And I mean, we both know from, we're avid listeners to Around the NFL podcast that when Dan Hamza starts bringing up a rookie kicker a lot, in a good way, in positive way, that means he's obviously doing something right, because the mediocre ones never get mentioned. The crap ones do, sort of thing. And so I think if it comes to overtime, that could be where the Bengals are maybe feeling themselves a little bit more, because they'll be able to risk a longer field goal attempt, I think, than the Titans will. I
think that's a very valid point. You were talking about the defensive side of the ball. The Bengals have 5 defensive players on the injury report this week as well.
Yeah, I think that I do think the Titans are going to win this. I think probably realistically it'll be regulation, and I just think they're going to control the ball more, and their defense is going to make a stop at some point, which gets them that extra score ahead. And the Bengals, whilst they'll stick with them, I don't think they'll catch them and overtake them. So that's my sort of pick. Moving on, we've got call it the old-fashioned bowl. We've got the two of the older clubs in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers, and of course, Titletown's very own Green Bay Packers. And I think it's set to be a cold one from what I've seen. It always is in Wisconsin from what we've experienced in the playoffs over the years. But this is a sneaky, interesting game. I guess everyone's going to think that Green Bay are going to win this, but 49ers peaking at the right time, and you never know. As
a statement, I can't disagree with you. I wrote the 49ers off. I have to own that. I had the Cowboys by 15. I was way off on that. Way off. They are not coming into this game healthy.
No.
They were banged up going into the game on Sunday, but coming out of it, they have holes if people aren't able to play. I mean, you've got Garoppolo, limited practice. Thomas, limited practice. Harris, Warner, Greenlaw, Mitchell, all limited practice, and Nick Bosa has not practiced this week at all yet. So, I mean, there's 10 mentioned on the injury report, and that doesn't include COVID protocol, which I haven't seen, if I'm honest. I haven't seen where they're at, if they've got anybody off or anybody coming back. It has been highlighted quite a bit that people coming off injuries and especially COVID protocol this year, if they're going into a game straight away, haven't been firing on all cylinders. So that is a worry for the 49ers. The Packers side of the ball, I think you've got Rodgers has still been complaining about his toe, which I think a little bit he's been playing on it. If there's been a ball gone awry or he's not necessarily had a great run of play, but you can tell he is in a lot of discomfort with it. There was a game a couple of weeks ago that I watched it live, and he got trodden on by his own offensive lineman. I think it was the center, and I mean, if I'm guessing that they were wearing studs straight through his toes. That's not going to be fun. I mean, you've played rugby. You know what it's like getting trodden on with studs. It's not nice. Yeah, and if you've got a previous underlying injury with that, it's going to, amplify that pain furthermore.
Yeah,
he has practiced in full this week, which is a good sign for Green Bay.
Yeah.
Valdez-Scantling is back to limited practice, so he's at least in and around. But the biggest difference between the two clubs that I see at the moment is Aaron Jones practiced in full this week. It wasn't a big storyline, but it was at least on the radar of people that there might be something underlying there, and he's practiced in full. So I think having Rodgers on the field, at least relatively, if not moderately healthy, having Jones ready to go, and giving Rodgers the potential for another weapon with Scantling coming back, that puts them over the top for me. I think 49ers played a very good game. Kyle Shanahan, tip of the cap to you. You dialed up a bloody good game last week, and it was as much as all I heard in the back of my head was Rambo going, "Going to bring that up next week." Yep, way off on that one. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this one. I enjoyed watching the 49ers play, and I don't say that often.
Well, I'll tell you why I enjoyed it, because as much as I'm an NFC West guy and I'm supposed to hate the other teams in NFC West, it meant that the Rams didn't have to go to Green Bay.
Good point.
And I'd rather go to Green. I'd rather not go to Green Bay, particularly after they've had a bye. If I'm any team, and I do think Green Bay are going to win this game. I think it would be stupid to suggest otherwise. However, I would say that where San Francisco have Green Bay is, I think San Francisco have a more varied running game than Green Bay. So if they can control the ball, and we talked about that in the last game, if they can control the ball, they might be able to stay with Green Bay. If they can keep
they have to get a couple of stops early.
Yeah, they
can't let Rodgers dictate how the rest of the game is going to be played within the first couple of. They need to do to San Francisco. Sorry, I'll start that again. San Francisco need to have the same start to the game as they had on Sunday.
Exactly.
I don't want to keep going back to the Cowboys game, because I think we've said enough about previous games, but obviously looking forward, you need to look at what they've played previously. The 49ers came out ready to go and said, I don't care what you give us, this is what we are going to do. They dictated the first quarter and a half, didn't let the Cowboys breathe, and it put them under the cosh. If the 49ers are going to win this week, they have to do that against Brady, against, help me out here, LaFleur,
yeah.
Yeah, because that's also a matchup that's very interesting.
Sorry, did you say Brady? I think you meant Rodgers. But
if I did say Brady, my sincere apologies. I know I meant
Rodgers. Brady, and you got the coach right, which is normally harder. But I think it's a much harder matchup against a veteran for them to do what they did to the Cowboys early. But if they can hit Rodgers early and it's cold and he's got a sore foot, there's nothing worse. Having played rugby and having had my feet stood on, if it's the middle of the summer, you can hack it. In the cold, it's horrid.
Yeah.
So if he's got a bad toe and it's cold and minging and snowy, and San Francisco can somehow get to him early and slow him down, he might be in for a torrid evening, despite the fact that we should have
Green Bay's defense. If Jimmy G is ready to go, if he can get a good start offensively, it's the Green Bay offense that have carried them this year. I'm not saying the Green Bay defense is bad, but if I was to take one of the two, I'd take the offense every day of the week.
That's fair.
So if the 49ers can get that stop, that maybe two stops, a couple of 3 and outs to start the game and even get a field goal start out of their first 2 drives, there'll be a lot of nervous cheeseheads.
Yeah.
I mean, having said that, I do have this as the biggest margin in the picks this week.
I can imagine why. I think this is I would say the only game where there's a total outright favourite, where even the spread is, and the bookies is going to be the highest, I would think, for this game.
Have you looked at what that is?
I have not, no. I've not been on Paddy Power yet.
Give us a sec, because I did actually have Stuart and I have got something on.
I was 6 for 6 last week. I wish I had a higher amount of money on.
Packers were 2 to 5 on, which says a lot.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure what the spread was that they're offering for the handicap, which normally puts
a fair point.
Which I would imagine would be about 8.5. I'm guessing. It depends on the bookies, of course, as well, because some of them know nothing about American football. It's quite funny.
Yeah, to be fair, it is quite funny. Let's not be quickly typing this while the avid listeners are listening to silence.
Yeah, I know that there was one, just to go off on Paddy Power, not to tee off on them too much, but Paddy Power once had the favourite to score the first try for Scotland as a sub, and they were playing Italy. And I don't know if you know anything about rugby, Kenney, but Scotland normally score tries against Italy pretty early on.
About the only team that do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to start that again. They're the only team that they score tries early against.
Well, they're getting better, but I mean,
it's a 6-point spread.
Is that? Oh well, I would have thought it would have been a bit more than that.
It is the biggest out of them all, but it is a 6-point spread in favour of the Packers.
Right. Okay.
Which I, to be honest, if I was a betting man, now granted I've got a $5 on an accumulator for this week, but I don't necessarily count myself as a betting man because it's never for the money. It's always just for a little bit of a punt. Mm-hmm. I would probably take the over on that.
Yeah, I think I would with that game. I'm not sure I would.
Just going back to the Titans are 3.5 point.
Yeah, Titans are 3.5. The Bucks are 3, and I've got here. I mean, this is Paddy Power, and I've got the Kansas City Chiefs are minus 1.5. Well,
yeah, it's the same on 365 as well, which is where I would be going.
Yeah. Anyway, we've went through all the betting odds. What did you say you had the score down as for this one?
10.
Differential of 10. I think it will be. I think it will be around a touchdown difference at least. And I think 10 is probably fair. I think the Packers will pull away in this one and eventually win it. I think if the 49ers do it, I think that they're gonna use up all the resources, and I think by the time they get to that NFC Championship game,
the playbook will be dry. It will need to be.
I think we're going to be looking at whoever comes out the other game has been the
no, I agree with that.
Yeah. So
apologies if there's background noise. A gritter's just gone up the street.
So moving on to the next game, it's also an NFC game. The Rams travel to Tampa at 8:00. Thank goodness, a Rams playoff game at a reasonable hour for me. This one, as we just said, they've got a handicap of 3 on the Bucks, which is kind of annoying handicap because you can get like draws and stuff. I don't know why they don't do 3.5 and stuff, but
well, you're betting on it being greater than 3.
Yeah, so it needs to be 4.
So I don't know why it wouldn't be 3.5 because it's still going to be 3.
Yeah, but it means if they win by 3, it's a push, I guess.
Well, no, it's a win for the odds maker.
Yeah, well, fair
because they've not beaten what you've said. You say they're going to win by over 3.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I know that again we're not doing massive reviews on the other games, but the Bucks I think had a pretty like sort of armchair ride in their game against.
It was a routine game. They did what they needed to. They enjoyed it. The one thing that I did take from that, there was a fair bit of talk. Is Brady going back in? Are they going to pull him out? Is he going back in? Are they going to? Oh well, who did they play?
The Eagles scored a couple of times.
The Eagles came back and scored a touchdown. Oh well, they'll definitely put Brady in. Oh, will they put Brady in? Like, who cares? Mm-hmm. That's not the commentator's decision. I don't really get why they were discussing it. Discuss it when it happens.
Yeah,
there was more to discuss in that game with regards to the plays, the play call. Who cares if Brady's in the game or not?
I think the colour guy maybe had a bit of a right to discuss it in the sense that, well, first and foremost, Troy Aikman was clearly pissed off he was calling this game because he said so.
Yeah, that did make me chuckle. That did make me chuckle.
It's like I started laughing, and Lindsay, who doesn't really follow American football, obviously, was sitting next to me knitting, and she was, "Why are you laughing?" And I explained to her that basically what he'd said was the next game should be a good one, and there's a lot of people who wish they were calling it, as in I wish I was calling it because this.
Yeah.
And I mean, that game, I guess what they were discussing was, are they running a risk because they lost Worsk? I think it's Worsk is the name of the lineman, because I never remember.
Yeah, his ankle was absolutely goosed.
They lost him, and Brady got sacked and hit quite a lot, and that was by the Eagles defense, who are not ferocious. And I think that was part of it, and part of it was the fact that the game wasn't entertaining, so they had to talk about something. But
well, I think, yeah, I do get that. And but who's the backup? Is it? I want to say it's Heineke, but it's not.
It's Blaine Gabbert.
Gabbert, that's it. Brady will make plays for you. The Eagles are starting to push a little bit. They got a couple of touchdowns. And if there's going to be somebody who can move, I'm not going to say he's going to run away from traffic. But if there's going to be somebody that's going to make the right decision, move up in the pocket, slide around in the pocket, or take the sack because it's the right play, who are you going to trust? Brady or Gabbert?
I guess their concern was
I think they had 3 linemen out with injuries in that game and already had a couple on the back. Now there's
got injured and came back. Yeah,
0 personnel on the injury report this week, which confuses me.
Yeah, I don't really understand how the injuries.
I mean, that's the Rams and the Bucks. In fact, it's the Rams, Bucks, Bills, and Chiefs, which we'll get to.
I guess that the injury reports have just not been updated for those 2 games.
I would hope so, because if first is playing, how?
Is it not? Did they not update them on Thursdays? And it's because these are Saturday games, they'll update them on Wednesdays. So the other 2, that's why the other 2 are updated, potentially.
That is a phenomenal shout, if that's right.
I don't know if it's right, but I'm just guessing. But if I think that in this particular game, the Rams ramped it up against Cardinals. And it was hard to say, and I'm being honest, I actually got up. This is the one game I got up. I went to bed at 9 o'clock.
He's going on a Rams rant.
1:15, got up and watched the game. And it was hard for me to tell if it was the Cardinals were so bad or the Rams had just got it so right in this game, because you've not watched
one play, and it's let's say it's a game that I very much saw the score and one highlight, and it told me everything I needed to know.
Was it the pick six?
Yeah.
It was one of the most garbage. I don't know what Kyler Murray was doing.
It's like, do you want to give up 7 points or do you want to give up 2?
Yeah.
Hold the feckin' ball, boy.
Yeah.
Seriously, what are you doing?
Yeah, especially in the playoffs. I mean,
give up 6, give up 2. Just hold on to the ball, suck it, and move on.
Yeah.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I know it is. And, he is a very elusive quarterback. He's got for the size of him, he's got a bullet of an arm. If he was the same size as Carson Wentz, he's got a mediocre arm. But for the size of him, he's got a damn good arm. And
you know what, Kenny? His arm will do him very well when he changes career and becomes an MLB player, because that's where he's headed if he plays like this ever again. Because it was bad. And I'm being facetious. He is a very good player, but the silly thing about it, and it's what goes through players' minds. We all panic when we're under a lot of pressure. He was clearly under a lot of pressure. Even if he'd thrown that ball away and it got to ground, it was a safety anyway, because he hadn't broken the tackle box. And he was throwing the ball away.
But that is exactly my point.
So
just suck it.
Yeah, he just had to take that one. Anyway, Rams Bucks will be in. I think this is going to be one where the away team have a slight edge in the fact that their line is intact. They're not their offensive line, their defensive line is thoroughly intact. And I think they could put Brady under a lot of pressure.
I mean, You go again without wanting to set you off on a rant, because
I'm trying not to.
I appreciate it, and so do the listeners, but you've got Donald, Miller, Ramsey, and help me out with the fourth one that I'm thinking of.
Well, you've got Darius Williams, the other cornerback, and then you've got Gaines, who's been playing excellent.
Gaines, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
If you've got Verse was playing on the right, even though you've got a right tackle that's got either playing in the wrong position because Verse out, or he's goosed anyway. If you put Miller on that side, who you know is going to get pressure, you put Donald on the left or through the center with the occasional Ramsey blitz. Dear Lord, it could be a long night for Brady.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody is going to cope with that pressure, I'd want Brady, or I'd want one of 3 people in that position with the offensive line that he's got or potentially got. Not that we've seen the injury report yet, because it's only Wednesday. Shut up, Rambo. You're going to want either Wilson, because he will run around like an idiot. He'll make mistakes, but he'll run around like an idiot. You want Rodgers, because he will make a play out of nothing. Or you want Brady, because he's been doing it for 22 years, and if there is a sack coming, he will take it. He will make the right play. Even if it's not a good play, he will make the right play. Rodgers and Wilson might make the occasional, shouldn't have chucked that one, and it'll get picked, or it'll be a shocking play, or he'll take a bad sack because they'll be running around 40 yards behind themselves. Brady won't do that because he can't. Brady will take a 2 to 3 yard sack, and then they'll reset and pray that somebody stops him, and he can then bomb the ball. He'll then knock it off to a Gronk or I want to say Scotty Miller, Evans, or
Scotty Miller.
Miller plays. Say again.
Scotty Miller is in the box.
Yeah. So there you go. Or if you can throw it long enough, you can find Antonio Brown on a beach somewhere. My point is, if you're going to have somebody under that duress, he's not the most athletic players. He's going to make the right play 97, 98% of the time because he's got that experience.
Yeah, I think his experience, if the Rams are able to tee off on him, which they might not be because the Bucks are well coached and they've got a week to prepare without the players.
And Arians is down about, was it 650 grand or 65 grand?
Arians?
Yeah.
Why is he down that much money?
He went on the field and slapped a guy in the helmet.
Oh, yeah. It was to stop them overturning the play, because if you start pulling bodies off, it becomes a penalty, and if it's a fumble, and so he was worried that we were overturning the play, so he went out and slapped his own player in the helmet to get him away from.
He got fined for
that. But the well coached Arians knows what he's doing. I mean, he'll take that money to keep them in the playoffs at the end of the day. I think this is one where, if the Rams defense can slow the Bucks offense down and the Rams can establish a bit of a running game and Stafford plays a clean game, maybe not perfect, but clean enough that he only maybe he was mistake-free, doesn't give loads of cheap turnovers away like he's done in other games, then I think the Rams can win this game. But it relies on those two things. It relies on the Rams defense not playing soft, which they've done in games, and many know I had a rant about that. They played aggressive last week. They were aggressive last week against the Cardinals. If they can do that against a better Bucks team, because the Bucks are, let's face it, they're way better than the Cardinals, then I think the Rams can come through this and go to the championship game. But I don't know. It depends on those factors. And if we can get to Brady, well, we all know that I think it's games where Brady's been sacked 3 times or more, his win percentage goes below 50 or something like that. I can't remember.
But if there's a team left in the playoffs that's got the personnel to do it, it is the Rams at the moment.
Yeah. So,
and I don't like the Rams. I don't know why. I have there's literally no basis for this argument. None.
Is it maybe just because I ranted about them for like an hour and a half last week?
No. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's been since I started watching the NFL 8-9 years ago. They're pretty boring. They're just a team.
Yeah, I think they're a weird team because their fan base is I would say their fan base is kind of strange, because there's obviously LA fans, there's St. Louis fans, and in LA, they often have, when they're at home, they often have crowds that are much more 50-50 than anywhere else. Not as much as the Chargers, but or perhaps Jacksonville, but they do tend to have sort of more partisan crowds that are split in two. And I think that kind of puts people off them. Well, St. Louis, they were, as I say, originally from St. Louis as well. So, not every fans maybe went with them. Fans, obviously, if they're still in St. Louis, are still fans, still live in St. Louis.
That's never had an issue with that, because, I mean, you look at the Ravens, dislike them, but I don't particularly mind the Browns. And that is a very similar. Obviously, they've got their own fan base now, and they sell out their own stadium. So that argument's still potentially in play.
Browns fans never became Ravens fans because they were quite big.
No, that's not what I was meaning. It was more that they've moved about in not the best circumstances, but they've kept their fans. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's just one of those things. I mean, I have the same with hockey. Like, I couldn't care less about the New York teams.
It's fair enough. I don't think the New York teams could care less about the New York teams sometimes. Anyway, what's your thoughts? I
was going to say, pick the game. Go for it. You go first, because I've picked the first two.
I'm going to say well, based on the last performance and all the rest of it as the playoffs, I'm going to say Rams by 6, which I think is punchy.
I've got Rams by 8, but that's a cover bet for me because it gives me the overtime field goal win.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see it as being an overtime type of game.
It's interesting that we both picked the Rams, though. I mean, I was obviously going to pick the Rams, but it's interesting that you've picked the Rams. But you obviously think with those injuries, I
just think the line. I've been bigging up Brady in this conversation. I think out of the two of us, I've given the Bucks more love than the Rams, and I get why that is because you're a Rams fan. But you are also quite pragmatic when it comes to breaking down a game to, okay, this is my fan hat, but there's also valid points on this side. So I do think that the line, the Bucks defense to the I'll start that again. The Rams defense to the Bucks offensive line is the key to the game. Yeah,
absolutely. If they can continually pressure them, you might not make mistakes, but you'll slow them down enough that you're gonna.
And what's Mark Sessler continually said about Brady? If you're in his face, that is the key to breaking down Brady. Now, a lot of people teams can't do that because Brady's had, for the most part, always had a good offensive line in front of him. He has a weakness there at the moment, and if there's a time to exploit it and a team to exploit it with the weapons, if they turn up, it is the Rams. So yeah, Rams by 8.
Cool. Now we managed to get through the Rams game pretty quickly, so we'll get on to the last game. Now, the last game has to be considered sort of, I don't know who the best, we'll say Captain America versus whoever from DC, Superman. This is the big game. This one is between the two quarterbacks at the absolute height of their powers. And I'm going to say this right out. We've talked about Brady and Rodgers enough. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes' ceiling is higher than either of those two guys if they keep going in that trajectory.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to pause on that. Don't lose your train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Any broadcast team for this game, who would you choose? Who do you want for this game, and who do you want for the Green Bay game?
Well, I'm not massive on what all the broadcast people are, but for this game, I guess for this game I would want probably Aikman and Buck.
That surprises me because that's my pick for this game as well.
I tell you who I'll go back one, right? And I know we're talking about the Rams game. I do not want Tony Romo on the Rams game. And I'll tell you why, because if the Bucks start winning, he's the most annoying guy in the world when he's talking up the other team. He's so good and he's so excitable, and I do like him. But if the Bucks are winning and he's going, oh, Brady this, and he'll do my head in. So
I refer you back to a previous comment about Rambo being a Rams fan.
Yeah, but either Aikman and Buck on this game, I think, because Troy Aikman probably deserves to be on a good game. And for the Green Bay game, I think I wouldn't mind Romo on the Green Bay game.
That's the one for me because I like it. I want to hear his analysis on the Rodgers-Garoppolo differences.
Mm-hmm.
Because Rodgers is exceptionally good before the snap.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Garoppolo, I feel, and I'm more than happy to be proved wrong on this one, I feel Garoppolo goes with the play call a lot more than he possibly even should. And I realize we're going back to a previous game.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think Romo is very good, and he gets a lot of praise for this, and I think sometimes it annoys other fans, but I think it genuinely helps me as somebody who likes the analysis of things to say this and if this happens, this is going to happen. If this happens, this is going to happen. I like that because it allows me to start looking at reads.
Mm-hmm.
Aikman is far more post-analysis. And he's exceptionally good. Now, ideal world, Give me Romo and Buck. Love it. It's not going to happen. Fully aware of that.
Well, two different stations, aren't they? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fully aware that it's never going to happen. I like Buck doing games. He gets a lot of stick, and he gets a lot. And it's previous in his career, he made a couple of absolute howlers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was he was pulled up for not being passionate enough about it. I don't know if you've read his book or not. I've listened to his book.
No,
very, very good read. If you want like a commentator's perspective on a game, Joe Buck's book, autobiography, is very good.
That's interesting.
And if you go for the Audible version, he reads his own book.
He's got quite a nice voice, actually. You can listen.
I like his voice. I do like his voice. And I realise we've kind of gone off on a tangent. I kind of didn't want to.
No, ideally who I'd liked on a game, though, one time, as a play-by-play guy, absolutely on TV, Matt Money Smith, I think would be awesome.
The Chargers guy?
Yeah, his radio calls are great. And
brilliant. Which game was the Drew Brees game?
I don't know. He was slated.
I liked him.
I can't remember which one it was, but anyway, we're talking broadcast teams. I mean, Nickelodeon could do this game, and it's going to be entertaining. Although I heard the Nickelodeon broadcast was brilliant of the Cowboys game. But this one is truly tough to call. I mean, last year I think everyone thought the Chiefs would beat the Bills, and they did. This year, if this had been mid-season, you'd have thought the Chiefs were going to win or sort of slightly later in the season, you'd have thought the Chiefs were going to win because the Bills weren't great. But blimey, the Bills in the last 4 weeks, that Patriots game where, after 2 weeks after the win game, they basically destroyed the Patriots. They then had another game the following week against Atlanta, and they were a bit slower, but they didn't play well, but they still win because they're that good.
The game was never in doubt. I mean, like you said, they didn't play well, but the game really was never in doubt. If anybody was starting to come across going, oh, well, they weren't really watching the game.
And then twice now they've played, I think it's twice they've played Patriots. I know they didn't have a perfect game the first time, but twice now they've played the Patriots in the last few weeks and not punted. I think the punter.
Yeah, there was a couple of field goals in there in the first game.
Yeah, but let's be honest with you. Would you be surprised if the Bills win this game? Because I would. And in fact, I think the Bills, in terms of trajectory and momentum, have got more than the Chiefs going into this game.
Are you picking the Bills?
I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to pick the Bills to win this game. I'm going to pick the Bills.
Rambo.
Bills by 4.
I'll tell you a secret. I've got Bills by 7.
Oh, there you go. But that covers a draw as well as a 14-point win, doesn't it, Kenney?
Well, I mean, yes, but there's never going to be a draw.
Oh no, it covers a 2-point win. That's what I mean. 2-point.
It covers anything in overtime.
Yeah, that's fair. The reason I think the Bills are going to win this is twofold. One, they're coming in absolutely smoking. Josh Allen is playing lights out right now. If you were just to take a snapshot of the last couple of weeks, Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. I know he's just ridiculous.
Josh Allen really annoys me. Really, really annoys me. He's one of these guys that is just damn good. He's a good-looking guy, and he's damn good at what he does. I'm neither, and it just annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to live with that myself, daily, that burden that Josh Allen has.
Yep.
And whereas on the other side, we've got Patrick Mahomes, again, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, consistently for the last 3 or 4 years he's been in the league. Sounds a bit like Kermit the Frog. So he's got that, that more humility thing going on.
What do you mean a bit?
Well, he sounds like Kermit the Frog, but this is going to be, I think, honestly, if there's ever a day anyone should, I don't know if work would understand these things, but this game is the one to miss work for. If you're ever going to be late, it's the one to miss work for, because these two teams are going to throw everything at each other. Play calling's going to be the thing. It's going to be, I think it's, the reason I said Bills by 4 is this. I think there's one drive where Andy Reid is not aggressive enough and kicks a field goal, and the Bills get that touchdown that wins it. Yeah,
I can see on that one. Just very quickly, I've been working in the background while you've been talking. I have been listening to you. The second Bills Pats game went touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown.
Yeah. So they didn't punt, is what I'm trying to say. They wasn't perfect. They didn't punt.
And then obviously they raised it last week to only touchdowns.
Yeah. So, blimey, I'm looking forward to it. It's hard to not just get excited thinking about this game. Like, it's absolutely the right game to end the weekend on.
Well, I get why it's in that slot, because it's the 6 o'clock, I think it is, works out at?
It's 6:30 p.m. over there, so it's prime time.
Yeah, it's 11:30 here, and it's just not. I will not be able to stay up for that game. I've always said there's one game I will stay up past midnight for, and that's one game a year.
It's a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
See, I can't get too much beauty sleep, or otherwise other men get intimidated. So.
All right, Josh.
So you've got the Bills by 7. I've said the Bills by 4. Matt Dybul likes both of us still. That's good to know. He's big Bills fan.
That is my lot in life, to make sure Matt likes me. I don't think that's ever happened, but we'll move on from that.
Now, essentially, I was 6 for 6 last week in picks. This week, 6 for 6. I will only put 50 pence on it. I wish I'd put a fiver on.
What did you get back off that?
Oh, £4.95. I put a fiver on it. I got like 49 quid back. So
that's not bad.
Yeah, I was also doing 50p flutters with some prop bets, and I got everything right in the Bills game, apart from I had Mac Jones throwing under 197 yards, and he threw over it. So despite the Bills, dominance in that game, Mac Jones still had a relatively good game, from what I can see.
Well,
so good for him.
Just on that, if you're sticking a flutter on, Stuart and I have gone for Packers, Bucks, Chiefs, and Titans, which I think we've both agreed on for. Although no, the Chiefs, we've taken the Chiefs in the bet, but I've gone for Bills in the picks. Is 32 back from a fiver, so
that's not too bad. I've obviously got the Rams and the Bills in the last 2 games, so I don't know what that will be, because they're both not favourites. So certainly we get more bang for your buck.
Absolutely.
So to speak, and hopefully we get a good weekend of games, because I don't want to see another game where you have the Cowboys looking completely clueless for half a game, or the Eagles and Pittsburgh games. I mean, I watched the highlights of these Eagles and Pittsburgh games, and the highlights for the Eagles were garbage time and TG Watt. That was nothing going on. And it's one of these things where, as I said to you, it never ends nice. It never normally ends nice for quarterbacks, and that didn't end great for Ben Roethlisberger in the end.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And I think I had a little bit of a rant last week with regards to his leaving party in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I think him putting a button on his career is the right thing to do. He's done it maybe 1 year too late, but I also don't think that people will hold it against him if he comes back next year. I know he said he's not, but then people would go, really?
Yeah. I think the thing is this year is last year it would have been even worse in a way because
They were shocking.
2 weeks we're getting pumped by the Browns. And so this year he's
I think
come
it was
back.
was there not 2 pick sixes in that last game against the Browns as well in the playoffs?
It may have been, I can't remember the exact stats of that game, but he got pumped twice by the Rams, by the Browns even. And he would have left on that note. I suppose this year, somehow they overcome all the odds because nobody expect them to be anywhere near the playoffs. They limp into the playoffs. For a wee while, they have a bit of hope that they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they don't manage it in the end. No one expects them to win that game. It's not like the Browns game where everyone expected them to win, and then he can go off into the wilderness and probably have some kind of career in broadcasting.
Has he got that?
I don't know personality, but you know what it's like. You get it with former players all the time. You know.
Talking of former players going off into the wilderness, did you see Andrew Luck?
No, I didn't see Andrew Luck. When was
he was on the sidelines in the Colts game? I think it was week 18. Must have been because they weren't playing last week because they were terrible.
Yeah.
He genuinely looked like he had a horde of badgers. Like he was just. I look it up.
I will look it up.
I don't know. Like I don't want to use the word "let himself go," but dear God.
Right. Yeah. It's a shame because you know something. No matter what team I've rooted for, in any game, Andrew Luck is a player I've always been a fan of.
I was a fan of him on the field. I hated his press conferences.
Yeah.
Hated his press conferences because it was always, oh well, that was bad on me. I should have done better. Well, yeah, I mean, there's protecting your teammates. There's also having no backbone.
Yeah.
Once in a while, just go and turn around and say, you know what? We've played crap. I tried my best, but we just didn't have, we as a team didn't have the tools. Or but then if they won, he would turn around and go, oh yeah, he had a great game and he had a great game and T.Y. Hilton was amazing and well, hang about, no, you had a good game as well.
Just too nice. Not enough Vinnie Jones in him for you.
Pretty much. I mean, if Vinnie Jones was in him, I'm sure he would have a different personality, but that's another podcast.
Anyway, that's enough on Andrew Luck. One last thing on press conference, I guess. I hate to go back to them, but Mike McCarthy just coming out and straight blaming the refs for their loss. What an imbecile. And I do kind of...
I genuinely don't know if he'll have a job next year.
Well, I wonder if Kellen Moore's interviewed and they're now out, I wonder if Mike McCarthy gets sacked and Kellen Moore gets promoted.
For the Cowboys, I think that would be the right move.
Yeah, I think it would.
The fact that they know Dan Quinn's going, because he's going somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the right move not necessarily maybe to get rid of McCarthy, promote Kellen Moore, and then just let him have his coordinators because he's going to get the choice of both.
Yeah, I would.
Rather than having a mismatch of previous regimes and new regimes and looking forward and just, I'm not going to say clean house, but do a bit of spring cleaning. Make it a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Put Kellen Moore in the position that he should be in. Mike McCarthy, I think I never really liked the hire anyway, if I'm honest.
No.
So, Dan Quinn, your defensive coordinator's going. Now, whether he goes to Denver, whether he goes to Jacksonville, whether he goes to, where else was he? Chicago. Who cares? If you're in the Cowboys camp, who cares? He's gone. He will go somewhere. Kellen Moore, there's a good chance he will go somewhere. So why not make him go upstairs?
Yeah, I think Kellen Moore would be the right call for the Cowboys. And
I think Kellen Moore would be the right call for any club.
yeah, and he's normally, to be honest, the Cowboys are normally well into nepotism and keeping people around probably longer than they should, as we discussed.
For one.
Yeah. But
Tony Romo for another. We'll move on from that.
Tony Romo, Garrett, Des Bryant, all these
Troy
people.
Aikman?
Troy Aikman potentially. I don't know. I was maybe a bit before my time in terms of following American football, but I think Kellen Moore staying there would be a good choice. I mean, my immediate thought was is that he would be a head coach somewhere, but he's not going to take Jacksonville. I think he's going to go somewhere where he's got the potential to work with a quarterback that he knows can win him some games early, and he can use in different ways. And
okay, what team are you going to put him in then? That's looking for a coach right now, because you're not going to put him in Jacksonville.
I know where I'd put him.
You're not going to put him in Chicago. You're not going to put him in Denver.
Chicago is, there's two teams that you could go to. Chicago's one of them because of Justin Fields. Because Justin Fields with the right.
What's the difference between Fields and, oh my goodness,
Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
Fields is a better quarterback and more mobile, and I think you can do more things with him.
Okay. You know more on that than I do, so I'm not going to argue with you on it.
That's just my opinion, by the way.
From an outside point of view, that doesn't, they're two teams that I don't really know. Not that I don't know. It's more that I don't know them as well as others. So they're both rookie quarterbacks. They both had very mediocre seasons.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that the Bears are a more historic, sort of well-respected franchise, and Jacksonville are a bit of a joke.
Recently, though?
I know that, but still, there's still that lure of the Bears, da Bears, they're a more respected franchise.
In the mid-'80s, yes.
I know, but Jacksonville aren't respected ever.
Jacksonville weren't around in the mid-'80s.
But they've never been respected since they've been around. I don't know, I just think there's too much. I don't think Lawrence was that impressive, apart from that Colts win. Whereas I think Fields has been injured, and I think that's largely because they've not schemed him up in the right way. And I think he's mobile, which is what he's worked with Dak. However, there is one other team that I think would be a good fit for Kellen Moore or any offensive coach, and it's the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr's there, so they've got a quarterback you can use just now. You can draft a rookie.
I would feel crap. I almost swore. I've not sworn so far, so I'm going to try and keep it. I would feel crap for Bisaccia.
So would I.
I genuinely think he's earned that job. I don't care what happened in the playoffs. The team itself has overcome so much this year, and he is a massive factor in that.
I agree. I think he should keep the job. But I think the way they've trended with sacking Mayock, I think that if a new GM comes in, potentially
we all want to pick his own. I mean, I get that argument, and I do agree when there's a good few podcasts that list the benefits of having a head coach and a GM come in at the same time, as opposed to a 2-year cycle. One comes in, gets 2 years, but it's the second year of the head coach, and then the new head coach gets the second year of the GM, and there's never really that cohesion. Mm-hmm. Look at me at 10:10 on a Wednesday night, looking like I have some sort of vocabulary. Anyway, I just think he's earned the right to shoot himself in the foot.
Yeah. I think I would say Bisaccia should stay, but it doesn't necessarily trend that they're going to keep him. So if they don't, then I think the Kellen Moore potentially, that is a destination that coaches might quite like. The idea of going to Vegas, the idea of having Carr already. I know Carr's not, it's not as exotic as Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or or even, you know, some of the newer, like Burrows and all that sort of stuff, the newer quarterbacks. But I think Carr is a steady quarterback that you can build a team you can use in your first season. That's helpful, and then you can draft a rookie to train in the background. And Carr's on the last year of his deal anyway, so you can cut him loose if you're not happy. I think that's quite a perfect situation for any coach to inherit. If you know,
I mean, it's a good argument. I don't have any comeback apart from the fact that I don't think he should get the job.
No, I don't think anyone should.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a very good argument for if Bisaccia doesn't keep his job, then yes, that is almost a perfect fit.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're not quite at the stage where we're gonna be chatting too many coaching appointments, because I would imagine that we'll not find out about a lot of them until after the playoffs.
No,
I mean,
it always happens at that point. Your coordinators that do well in the playoffs all end up getting jobs somewhere. So that'll be maybe a couple of weeks for that. But should I assume that we're meeting same time next week?
We will be. Yeah, we're doing Wednesday night next week to get to go through essentially the conference championships. I am not meeting to preview the Pro Bowl, because that's just stupid. So we'll have a week off after that.
Sounds good to me.
The Super Bowl, you know, the Wednesday just before the Super Bowl, and then we can chat draft and stuff after that, if we even know anything enough about the draft to chat about it.
It's not my strong point, but I'll chat bollocks anyway.
And everyone pray that the Rams don't make the Super Bowl, otherwise that is going to be an interesting episode.
I mean, to be fair, I'll probably just mute myself and have a nap.
Yeah,
I'll just let you go for it.
To be fair, if the Rams and the Bills make the Super Bowl, we're definitely going to have dibs on as a special guest.
Oh, absolutely. I would be the gooseberry in that argument. I'd be happy with that.
You'd be the referee.
Yeah, why not?
Excellent. Well, it's been good to chat. It's been a little bit more controlled than perhaps last week.
We're not at an hour and 55. I don't know what we're at. An hour and a half,
maybe. We're just slightly over an hour, so we're
all right.
An
That's
hour
not
and 20 or something like that. So it's not horrendous. If you got to this point, thanks very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Some new articles coming out on All Blaze No Glory as well. Actual written word, if you want to follow on Facebook or Twitter. Also Kenney's Column Wellness, where you can find out all about your wellness, and he does coaching, and he's a very supple man, so he can help you out with that sort of stuff, if you so desire. Tune in next time, and thank you very much, and thanks to Kenney.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.